Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Jun Wen from the School of Business and Law. It is Cowan University, based in Western Australia. Thank you so much for participating in our webinar entitled Uniting Around COVID-19, a starting point for emerging interdisciplinary tourism research. So today's webinar will last around 1 hour and 50 minutes. As participants, you are muted, and please keep your video off to ensure speakers' voices are clear, but we encourage you to engage through the chat option. So these webinar moderators will try our best to check your comments and questions throughout the session. Okay, this webinar is co-hosted by Professor Metin, Kozak, and myself. So we are lucky to have 6 distinguished speakers on board from different disciplines to share their experiences with interdisciplinary tourism research in the context of COVID-19. So hopefully we can get to know each other and inspire more collaboration in the near future. Okay, first, let me introduce the 2 moderators of this webinar. Okay, one of today's moderators is Professor Metin Kozak from Turkey. Metin, thank you for hosting the webinar. So Professor Metin Kozak works in the School of Tourism at Dokuz Eylul University in Turkey. He serves as a co-editor of Anatolia, an international journal of tourism and hospitality research, and is an editorial board member of over 20 journals. His scientific works have been cited over 15,000 times as indicated by Google Scholar, and he has been recognized as one of the most prolific tourism researchers. Okay, another moderator is myself. Okay, I am Dr. Jun Wen, a lecturer in tourism and hospitality management at the School of Business and Law. It is Cowan University. As an early career researcher, I embrace new challenges in research and am keen to learn from other colleagues in different disciplines. I love research simply because I want to share ideas and stories from daily life. It's my great pleasure and honor to co-host this webinar with Professor Kozak and to hear inputs from 6 distinguished speakers. Okay, so we just get started our discussion. Okay, so first speaker was planned to be Professor Wei Wang. So Dr. Wang is a professor at the School of Medical and Health Sciences and a Pro Vice Chancellor at Edith Cowan University. He is also an academic editor for several medical journals such as +1, Translational Metabolic Syndrome Research, and the Journal of Global Health. So Professor Wang has published over 100 scientific papers in prestigious journals such as Science, Nature Genetics, and The Lancet. In 2017, he was elected as a Fellow of the Royal Society of Medicine in the United Kingdom. So based on his profile, you may be wondering how an expert in medicine and life science has become involved in tourism research. So let's welcome Professor Wang to share his insights with us. So hello, Professor Wang. Thank you for joining this webinar. Hello, Professor. Okay, so to start, hello. I have a couple of questions specifically for you. Okay, we have 3 questions for you based on our collaborations. The first one, could you briefly introduce COVID-19 related research progress in your field and tell us about your research focus around COVID-19?
Okay, hello everyone. Thank you very much, Jun, for your kind introduction. The first question looks very, very timely for us. Okay, good. My team, actually, I somehow define my team as a cross-discipline collaboration within the team itself. I name it as a macro science versus micro science. So for your first question, I would like to say, we are focusing on a very sweet molecules. It named as a glycan, it's sugar plus proteins. So what is glycan? Actually, for the COVID-19, the virus itself, not just COVID-19, and also SARS, MERS, influenza viruses, and also, the HIV. So you see, they name as somehow as a virus belongs to the coronavirus family. So why the virus named as a coronavirus? Because they got some, crowns. So, if you look at the virus, it got a spike, on their membranes. You can see in the membranes, you can see the spike looks like a crown. Okay, that's how the name comes from. And actually, this spike are the spike proteins. And these proteins coated with sugars. So then once the sugar touch to the glycans, it's called the glycosylation. It's somehow linked by the enzymes, the protein and the sugar linked together. And this very dynamic the process, okay? So such a process dynamic, then in the technical term, this type of structures are the antigen structures, part of the antigen structures. So in such case, keep changing, the antigen keep changing. So that's why up to date, when we talk about the vaccination, the virus such as HIV virus, the vaccination, we haven't got a clue now. Okay, so it's very difficult. So this is part of our, our team not directly involved in the, the vaccination development, but our study on the glycans actually gave the basic, information to the scientists working in this area. So about the the structures of proteins, and let's contribute to the the vaccination development. So in another word, we are contributing. Who will win? Is the viruses or the scientists? We are setting up a time alliance for the vaccination development. Okay, I'm very proud of my team. We are working on this, and also the glycan proteins also can be used as dynamic biomarkers for the the chronic disease. For example, metabolic syndrome, diabetes, hypertension, just name them. Okay, so this is a very potential battery panel of marker, okay, to be used in the clinical settings. Yeah, thank you. Hopefully I answered your question. Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's very good for us to learn a little bit about your research lines from the medical perspective in relation to COVID-19. Thank you. Our second question is, we have collaborated on a couple research papers in tourism, so it's excellent. So would you like to share your experiences in terms of how these two disciplines can work together? Maybe you can talk about the challenges and the benefits from your perspective.
Actually, being relatively senior, okay, in terms of aging, age, as a senior academic, I'm very happy to see the young generation scientists. They, equipped with a lot of knowledge from different disciplines. For example, Wen Jun, when you came to me, I'm actually really happy. As I mentioned, my team itself, it is somehow usually people say you can't inbreeding, you can't do the inbreeding within your team. Or another term is the endogamy or consanguinity. But actually in my team, I have mathematicians, actually graduated from university with a pure, mathematics background. And in my team, I have some, candidates, PhD candidates from, medical background. They are trained as clinicians, and also some of them, from the life, science background, and the public health as well. So these guys, somehow I name, for people working with a big science, for example, epidemiology, or public health. Somehow I say, okay, you work in a macro science environment. And for the other part, they working at the micro science environment. They are working on glycans, biomarkers, genes, all these proteins, or all these things, okay? So for you, when you came to see me, I'm really happy, okay? If someone suddenly, from School of Law and Business and came to see me, talk about collaboration, particularly, the cross-discipline collaboration, I'm very proud of, you as young scientists like you. For this, in my mind, it's like what we wrote together. 2 brains or 3 brains, it's better than 1, okay? Super than 1. It's much better, much clever, okay? And you look your area with a very big, background, conceptualization, okay? Conceptualize, your ideas with your expertise. And for us, we somehow, as a scientist working on nature science, okay? So we like to be more, data-based, data-driven, or hypothesis-driven, okay? Or evidence-based, okay? We much more focus on the details part. So in such case, you give us somehow, people from your area give us a big picture, okay? Holistically, it's very good. We have a very nice logic frame. Then for us, we fill in a lot of gaps in details. Okay, this is why, since we started together, we got 3 publications already, right? So for example, you talk about, the theories part, and I'm thinking about this, from my area. Actually, we are doing something. We are challenging, right now. Okay, it's the orthodox versus paradox. Okay, it's the big science. For example, the law, the theories, versus genetics, molecular science. Okay, so that's in my mind. So all these things, once we, we support each other, very complementary, okay? Actually, from your expertise, our expertise, we can make things, more understandable to the audience, from, contribute from each of us from our own expertise areas, okay? So that's, I think, is the, in my mind, okay, to encourage, cross-discipline collaboration.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm very proud of myself and have the opportunities of working with you and your team. That's excellent working experience for me, especially for the young scholar at the stage of my career. So I hope the more young scholar can have the opportunities of working with colleagues from the different disciplines to have a big picture and to work together to make a more contribution to the society. But thank you so much for your answer. I have another question for you. So recently, so myself, you, and the Professor Kozak, so our webinar moderator. So recently, we wrote a paper about embracing and respecting brief research in tourism. So could you please give a quick synopsis of the diverse research categories available in medical journals, such as rapid communication, letters to the editor, perspective, clinical notes, and etc. So can you talk about it in your area?
Yeah, actually, very nice question. Okay, for me, with my nature science background, okay, so I'm very much honored and privileged to be involved in several journals. For example, I'm the chief editor of the translational metabolic syndrome research. So, and also this published by Salvia. And also, the other one, for example, like the Journal of Human Hypertension, published by Nature. Okay, so it's and also the Journal of Global Health and PLOS One. All these prestigious journals. I'm as the academic editor or regional editor. So from my discipline, I can see there is a trend, and more scientists emphasize publish you know, some very, very clean, you know, brief, you know, topic focused, you know, a mini review or editor communication. Or, you know, this is, for example, you know, for this, you know, pandemic, COVID-19. From my team, and this is my own experience, actually, we submit a very, very short review. It's a mini review for how to screen, you know, the infections of COVID-19 at the population level. For example, with limited resources, if you got two machines, one is the CT, you know, you do the chest, you know, examinations, okay, based on the clinical symptoms. The other one is they call the PCR. It's the polymerase chain reaction, okay? This is a very technical term, okay? So these two technologies with limited resources, for example, in the future, currently even, okay, in Africa countries, okay? So how do you use these two resources? If hospital only have one of them, or not the other scenario, you know, you got two. So how do you use them more efficiently? We actually develop a protocol. So one you can just use one, or just use the other one, or just use the combination of two to do the, you know, the diagnosis, or to do the isolation, you know, patient isolation or preclinical diagnosis, all these things, okay? This actually is the policy contribution from the, you know, the perspective of disease control. So this paper we submit, you know, to the Journal of Global Health. It's a top one Q1 journal, okay, in global burden of disease, you know, in these, you know, disciplines. Actually, it accepted in the second day. It is so important, okay? And for me now, actually, I don't know, probably, you know, you correct me if I'm wrong. The simple, the better in terms of size. Okay, so and the more simple, for example, you know, I think in our paper, I mentioned about, you know, the Nobel Prize laureate, okay? Our, you know, colleagues here based in Western Australia, you know, for example, Robin Warren for that, you know, the discovery of the, you know, the Helicobacter pylori, okay? So for the, you know, the gastritis, you know, infection things, got the Nobel Prize. It's just a letter to Lancet. That's how, you know, he got the Nobel Prize, okay? And for example, you know, more famous Einstein. You know, that's, you know, the simple, that's 3 letters, you know, E equals mc squared. So let's, you know, this type of things really, really should be encouraged. If you just, you know, now with so many informations, WeChat, you know, email, you know, all this, you know, we are talking on the Zoom now, okay? So there's so many information explosion, you know, in terms of data, okay? The simpler, the better, okay? So I really encourage young generation, you know, to publish, you know, for example, letter to editors, ask the question directly and answer the question directly, okay? The simple means we are more logic. Okay, and the simple means people have more time to read. They can read more. Okay, so okay, that's all for you know, from me. If you want to talk on this topic, I can talk for half days, but I have to stop here. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I have another question, just to follow up. So, how do you think the research category? I mean, the different categories like rapid communication can to some extent encourage the sharing of ideas and research findings? Can you just be a little bit more specific in terms of research outputs?
So certainly, and actually, this category should be encouraged, you know, to promote itself. For example, you know, if you give a short, you know, a communication, whatever, the good things now, you know, in terms of our big journals, for example, Nature, Science, now they encourage you to deposit your original data as an appendix. Okay, people read all these short communications, you know, letter to editors or whatever. Okay, so then the mini reviews, if they need to understand more, they will read all these appendix. Okay, hierarchically we build, you know, our data bank, okay, as a pyramid, okay. So people focus on the topic is somehow topic focus or discipline focus things. Then in such case, you give more chance for the cross discipline people, the readers audience from other disciplines to understand you. So right, so they read because the simple ones. Then if they want to understand more, they do more deep reading. Then they can. This is the really, I think this is the best way for current scientists to communicate each other. If you got a paper, 50 pages, people just too busy to read them. Okay, so that's my personal comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The last questions, we still want to focus on COVID-19. So in terms of COVID-19, and from a journal editor's perspective yourself, so are these research categories important in your field?
It is very important. Okay, so for example, it is just now people keep talking about the COVID. Actually, actually we are talking about the epidemic, the pandemic, the endemic as well. Okay, this pandemic, COVID-19 could be endemic, you take my word, okay? Another, probably, 1 year or, several months later, people suddenly, oh, this could be an endemic, change, transform, okay? Also, we are talking about, the chronic disease versus, the infectious disease. Now we are talking about the disease burden now, okay? So this area is not just the COVID-19. So actually this, as I mentioned, for example, my own work, glycan. For glycans, actually the work we are doing not just contribute to the COVID-19 to understand, the mechanism of all these, infections, but actually we are contributing to the HIV, understanding HIV, MERS, okay, and SARS, and even I'm thinking about this influenza now, okay. For example, this year, Australia, our country here, we will compare. For example, this is my idea now, okay. This is a very interesting challenge. Is when you compare, the influenza with the, pandemic COVID-19, the disease pattern, okay, will change. Okay, so this then influence with the budget, the planning, the health, the policy makers, the pharmaceutical companies, the GPs, all these, primary care things. We have to, all this information will be helpful for our, government, for, our scientists, for the, the primary care health workers. That, this nature science versus, and also your area, traveling. Okay, so and then we can do the predictions. Okay, then we can make ourselves ready for the challenge. So this is really, it's not just, this is important topic, but for my personal comment, it is not the COVID-19 itself. Okay, it is, it's in this domain. There are a lot of things. Okay, behind of this.
Okay, thank you so much, and thank you for your time. This is all my question today. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your experience. So I hope we can have you involved in more tourism research, or maybe just broader to social sciences in the near future to further combine our disciplines together. Thank you so much for Professor Wang and your great insight. Thank you. Our speaker is a social professor, Fang Liu. Okay, in the Department of Marketing at the Business School and the University of Western Australia. Associate Professor Liu's research interests involve branding and brand management and marketing communications, advertising and public relations, international strategy, and cross-cultural consumer studies. She is also interested in tourism research and has published papers in several top-tier tourism journals. Okay, regarding research collaboration between tourism marketing, and we are very lucky to have Professor Fang Liu on board. Hello, Associate Professor Fang Liu. Thank you for joining us.
Hi,
Hello.
hi Wen, how are you?
Yeah,
And
very
hello
good.
everyone.
Thank you. Yeah, very lucky to have you on board, and very lucky to have some research collaboration with you. We have 2 questions for you. Okay, so to start with, you can say something to all the participants and introduce yourself.
Okay, do you want to sort of speak out the question first?
Okay, yeah. The first question is, how can we identify a strong intersection between the 2 disciplines, between tourism and the marketing?
Okay, thank you, Wen, for organizing this webinar. And I think it's going to be exciting to listen to researchers, collaborators from different areas. Towards your question, I think there may be many different types of approaches. And one approach I often adopt is to ask collaborators or potential collaborators ourselves first from 2 disciplines or more than 2 disciplines. Can we identify a topic that's interesting and novel to both disciplines? I mean, it is without any doubt that each discipline will have its own perspectives, focuses, and priorities in terms of what a good research topic would be. And when we consider different people in the team, we'll find that different collaborators may have different experiences. So some of them are more senior, some of them are probably more junior, and etc., and maybe coming from different industry backgrounds. So inherently, we will have different priorities and focuses in terms of what an interesting topic would be. So I think the first thing I would suggest or recommend is to have some effective communications within the team, within the collaborators from disciplines. So sometimes the collaborations, the communications may be triggered by the event or an incident. I think COVID-19 is a perfect example here. Dr. Wen and you and me, I mean, we have a lot of discussions about COVID-19. Both of us looking at international tourism after COVID-19 or post-COVID-19, but we actually have different interests. My interest is primarily, perhaps more inherited from marketing, would be, how COVID-19 have changed consumers' personal characteristics. And for example, how their uncertainty avoidance have been changed. And we also look at attitude changes as well. For example, their attitudes towards certain destinations may have changed, within or post COVID-19. So from the marketing point of view, we are interested to know how these changes may have influenced consumer or tourists, more specifically, their travel intentions or their travel behavior. But I think from my understanding, Dr. Wen, you are more interested, or you're actually interested in more looking at the difficulties or the challenges that the suddenly increase or suddenly decrease travel numbers have posted on the country or the nation or a particular sector. For example, the challenges over public health in a specific country or region. So I think you and me, we are from different disciplines and our perspectives are different, but they are actually complementary in terms of developing a more thorough understanding of the influence that COVID-19 may have posted on tourism. Yeah. In other words, I think if collaborators can find a research topic that are novel, interesting, and important in both disciplines, and that it can help advance understanding of a phenomenon or behavior, then I think you already identify a strong link or intersection between the 2 disciplines. But it's also worthy to know that through my own experience, that before we actually have collaborations among different disciplines, we should at first have a good understanding about our own disciplines. Yes. We should know what are the frontiers of research in our individual or perspectives, and then we collaborate on that. So I think that's very important that we actually have a good knowledge about our own discipline, and then through the collaboration, we may develop more understanding of our own discipline as well. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I think the intersection or the collaboration could be created through industry initiatives. For example, right now, I think a lot of governments and regional authorities, they are actually creating groups or task force to help tourism to recover from COVID-19. And these task forces or groups often actually invite experts from multiple disciplinaries, multiple areas, such as tourism, urban planning, marketing, logistics, economics, etc. So this task force or groups already suggests there are strong interceptions or collaboration opportunities among these disciplines. So this is some of my thoughts about the question that you asked. I think it's a very interesting question to actually debate and discuss.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you so much for your great insights. I think that's a good foundation for us to collaborate on some interdisciplinary research. So I think that's the reason we can quickly publish one research about COVID-19 in Tourism Journal. So thank you for the collaboration opportunity. Okay, the second question is, how should we measure the value of collaborative research? It's a more general question.
Okay, as I said, that my main research area is marketing. And in marketing, I think value is regarded as a very complex and often multidimensional construct. And I believe the value of collaboration research also have that kind of pattern. I think it should be examined in multiple levels and layouts. More specifically, I think when we talk about any research, we will look at some basic value, such as theoretical or academic value and practical value. So for collaborative research across different disciplines, I think this theoretical and practical value should be examined in a more careful and more sophisticated way. So for example, as to theoretical value, we should look at not only the theoretical advancing in each discipline, but also the sort of new value or new type of value co-created by both disciplines. This will be really, really, I think, the most interesting part of collaboration or collaborative research. For example, through my own experience, I found out that some of the findings we have may be consistent with marketing theories, but not consistent with tourism theories, or vice versa. So this creates a lot of advanced understanding about the same kind of problem or issue arising. And then I think these are really the most interesting parts I'm looking at through collaborations. The same pattern probably would be applied to practical value as well. So practical implications will need to be discussed not only in the scope of each discipline alone, but also discuss looking at both disciplines or even beyond both disciplines. And I'm sure researchers like me will see a lot of inconsistency here through the collaborative research. For example, in one of my projects looking at tourism development, from the marketing point of view, we would suggest that there should be more tourism activities provided by the local tourism operators because that could enhance tourist experience and their satisfaction. But my colleagues in tourism planning, they actually question about this because their concern is that these more activities will leave more human footprint in the nature, and that may have negative consequences on the environment and sustainable development of the region. So when discussing these practical value aspects, we found it's really, really challenging to have a perfect solution that can satisfy both disciplines and areas. This is actually a good thing because it can actually drive us into developing a more realistic, more thorough plan for regions that may have gone through different stages of tourism development. So another example I could provide here is on rural or agri-food tourism, which I recently engaged into. So I've been looking at how to develop rural and agri-food tourism in regional areas in Western Australia. So through my marketing team's research on international tourists, we actually would recommend regional authorities, towns, and operators to extend their business hours in the afternoon, for example, from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m., so that they can actually capture some tourists, international tourists, who actually drive to other tourist sites nearby their towns or areas. However, when we propose this, local tourism planning authorities or and farmers or tourism operators, they do not favor our recommendation because they think this actually have negative impacts on their lifestyle or the town's lifestyle. So this makes us to go beyond the normal thinking process, often limited by our own disciplines such as marketing, but it actually offers great opportunities for more creative solutions for tourism development. So I think besides these two, other types of value would need to be looked at as well when you consider collaborative research, such as value to each individual collaborator personally, and values to the community actually as a whole, for example. So I think as a summary, interdisciplinary collaboration research will create value that may not be otherwise available through individual disciplines. This is a great point for collaborative research. But we also need to, while we are actually developing more understanding of the value of collaborative research, it's equally important that we should pay attention to the challenges which may arise from collaborative research. For example, how we actually manage a big team. How do we actually manage team conflicts? And also, how do we develop actually value measures to accurately evaluate interdisciplinary collaborative research? So there are a lot of challenges ahead as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your great insight for the collaboration opportunity between marketing and the tourism. So we will have you back later for more discussion. Okay, thank you for Professor Liu. Thank you so much. Okay, our next speaker is Associate Professor Joshua Aston. So let me introduce Joshua Aston firstly, okay? So Dr. Joshua Aston is a Associate Dean of Law at the School of Business and Law. It is Cowan University. His areas of interest lie in international criminal law, international human rights law, and contract law. I have had the good opportunity of collaborating with Dr. Aston on some research papers in tourism using his expertise in law. So based on our cross-disciplinary research collaborations, we have some questions for you to share your insight with us. Hello, Dr. Aston. So yeah, we just get into the discussion. Okay, we have some questions for you. The first, what is the defining link between tourism and human rights?
Right, thank you for that question. As you would agree, tourism is one of the largest and the fastest growing service industries in the world. So whether we are talking about agri-tourism or suicide tourism or village tourism or aid or ancestry tourism, animal tourism or astrotourism, or even religious tourism, and the list can go on and on and on. What we're really looking at, the defining link, is the human aspect. And this is inevitably followed by rights which are guaranteed by national and international laws. Now, when I'm talking about national laws, I mean, of course, the Constitution, the national legislations, for example, modern slavery legislation of 2018 in Australia. And specifically, when I'm looking at international law, I'm hinting at the United Nations Declaration on Human Rights, the Labor Law Conventions, the United Nations Convention on Transnational Organized Crime, and so on and so forth. Now, Dr. Wen, tourism, I mean, undoubtedly, it generates so many jobs. It creates great wealth. There is no doubt about it. However, tourism benefits are not equally shared. In fact, tourism development frequently violates people's human rights, particularly poor people, particularly vulnerable people, particularly from developing countries. Often human beings are displaced from homes, from their lands, and this is just done to make way for tourism developments. And this actually leads to loss of livelihood, loss of access of natural resources, sometimes their culture because of tourist attractions, and of course adds to the poverty index because of the poor pay that tourism industries pay to their employees. Now this is particularly the case in poor countries, particularly countries which have been the conflict, just come out of conflict zones. And these are the countries which have very weak enforcement to their laws. But what is important is that businesses also have a responsibility to respect human rights of workers and local commuters. But the problem here is, and it's a big but, the market competition and the consumer demand for cheap holidays means responsibilities are often not upheld. And that's where the problem of human rights violations begin. Now, when I'm talking about the right to work with dignity, it's guaranteed by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And right to work with dignity includes right to work with free choice of employment, favorable conditions, equal pay for equal work, rights of just and favorable remuneration, rest, leisure, rights to work, have holidays and get paid for those holidays. It is this exploitation of human beings that laws try to curb, if not control or end. And that's why I say violation of human rights is not just a matter of human rights law. It's a matter of criminal law as well as labor law. So just to sum up, I think in conclusion, I would like to say that as you have the concept of corporate social responsibility, the new mantra to go forward today is corporate human rights responsibility.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, that's a great insight. So we can check the tourism industry development from the law's perspective. Okay, so the second question for you is, how will Australia's Modern Slavery Act help to curb human rights violations in the tourism sector?
Thank you. Thanks for that question. A very interesting one, and it is certainly a burning issue. I mean, one of the best things that could have happened in 2018 is the enactment of the modern slavery legislation of 2018. The federal government brought it in. And this is a very, very important one because it requires entities to report on the risks of modern slavery in their operations and supply chains of their businesses. Now, to be honest, modern slavery has not been defined in the legislation, but it does lead us to referring to Division 270 and 271 of the Code of Criminal Procedure. But in a nutshell, modern slavery is basically slavery, servitude, the worst forms of child labor, forced labor, human trafficking, debt bondage, and forced labor, so on and so forth. Now, if you look at the term modern, and I'm just giving a little bit of idea about the nomenclature. Modern is something that is used to distinguish the present from the past. In that sense, modern slavery, the word modern slavery is a misnomer because slavery is as inhuman, as pernicious, and as present as it ever was. And the reality of today is that forced labor has a place in operations and supply chains of so many more businesses. Now comes the million-dollar question. How can this act curb human rights violations in the tourism sector? Looking at the tourism sector, the tour operators depend on a variety of service providers. So they're looking at, for example, the transport company. They are dependent upon the transport company for the domestic, for the international, for the local travel. They're dependent on the tour guides, the accommodations, the hotels that we have, or the catering. So they're all dependent, and then they're doing this, they're running out the business depending upon all these outsourced sectors, if I can say that. Now, under this act, entities will need to report if they are an Australian entity or if they're carrying out business in Australia with a maximum annual consolidated revenue of $100 million. Now, the best part of this act, this legislation is that it has extraterritorial nature, which means Australian businesses overseas will also find place in the reporting register. Usually, businesses, especially in the tourism sector, care a lot for their name and for their brand, and any negative reporting would lead to loss of their customers. And I'm really optimistic that I know that this legislation has some of its drawbacks, but it is in its initial stage and it would go a long way in curbing the violations of many sectors, including the tourism industry.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah, we are currently working on one project about child sex tourism. Do you have any recommendations we can bring this market in the end to protect the children from this industry?
Yes, I was going to touch upon that, but I was conscious of time. Indeed, child sex trafficking industry is, again, I mean, it's the black market that has been flourishing over the past so many years, and you know, it's kind of embedded in the tourism sector, and there's such a lot of sex trafficking that goes on and is linked with these kinds of tourist activities. In fact, in the light of COVID-19, one would believe that probably, you know, this sector would have cooled down, but that has not really happened. It's added to the problem. Just imagine how is social distancing going to be practiced by sex workers who are literally, you know, crowded up in rooms and forced to be together, and the manner in which they are treated, their human rights are violated, they don't get enough pay, health conditions are very, very poor. And I think it's very important that we talk about it, link it with the tourism business. And again, I mean, you know, the modern slavery legislation would play a very, very important role in curbing this to a great, great extent. Okay,
thank you. So the last question for you is, please share your insights on the UN guiding principles on businesses and human rights, and what they mean to the tourism industry in the globe.
Look, we all know that businesses impact human rights wherever and however they operate. Now, these impacts can be either positive or negative. And these days, companies are global, which means the impacts are also global. Companies operate in poor countries, or even, as I said earlier, post-conflict countries, where governments are either unable to or unwilling to enforce their own laws. Now, whether it is the responsibility of the government or it is the responsibility of the company to ensure that human rights are respected was a huge question. And this was a dilemma that which the world suffered in. But somewhere in 2011, the United Nations came up with its guiding principles on businesses and human rights, which were established to basically set a global standard for preventing and addressing the risk of adverse impact on human rights linked to all the business activities. Now, the United Nations guiding principles are also known as the Ruggie Report, because it was John Ruggie who was the special rapporteur who brought in this. It basically consists of 31 principles which implement the United Nations Protect, Respect, and Remedy framework. So the three pillars basically of these guidelines are, number one, the government. It must take the responsibility and make sufficient laws to curb human rights violations. This report doesn't just rely upon the government, because it understands that sometimes the governments may be unable to or unwilling to. And that's why it also sets a responsibility on the company. So the companies must respect human rights. So building a school or just a well is not enough. Companies would have to act with human rights due diligence for their business activities. And of course, the third remedy is again with the government, to ensure that if any kind of violations take place, the governments have enough courts and enough systems, the legal system is in place to ensure that justice prevails at the end. So basically, human rights is not a passive responsibility anymore after these guiding principles have come up. It must be systematically integrated into the corporate processes, including, of course, business management. Now, this applies to the tourism sector as well. So this particular guideline is based on the guiding principles on businesses and human rights that was specifically devised by the members of the Roundtable Human Rights in Tourism to address the needs of tour operators. It supports the development of human rights strategy that can be integrated into already existing management structures of the tourism industry, and of course individually adapted to the size and the business activities. Now, this guideline also encourages those businesses that have so far failed to practice sustainability. So corporate social responsibility, environmental management, all this is covered up under these guidelines. So the answer to your question specifically is, yes, I would say that these guidelines offer a very simple but a systematic way to move forward for all industries.
Okay, thank you so much. So hopefully we can do more research on human rights, but in the context of tourism. Okay, it's really good to have you on board in tourism research. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So next we will turn to Dr. Carol Wang. Hello, Dr. Carol Wang. Hello, Carol.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. It's really good to have you on board. Thank you for joining us. Okay.
Thank you for having me.
Dr. Wang is a nurse in China, Singapore, and Australia, and has more than 28 years of nursing experience. Now she is a lecturer and a researcher within the School of Nursing and Midwifery at Edith Cowan University. Her research interests lie in traditional Chinese medicine, such as acupuncture, capping therapy, and clinical trials, and complementary and alternative therapies, and so on. Recently, we are very happy to hear from Dr. Wang in a paper regarding the potential influence of traditional Chinese medicine on Chinese tourist behavior during COVID-19. So we have a couple of questions today on TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, and its possible connections to the tourism industry. Hello, Carol. The first question for you is, what is TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, and how does it work? And could you please give us a brief summary about it?
Thank you. This is a big question. I'll try my best to explain. So traditional Chinese medicine goes back 4,000 years with a holistic diagnosis and treatment system. TCM is a broad range of practices, but sharing common concepts. So including herbal medicine, acupuncture, acupressure, tuina, we call it, or massage, and qigong exercise, and food therapy. How does TCM work, and why can it cure disease? I think it is all about balance. So TCM believes that treatment is to promote self-adjusting process, arising the body adjusting self-healing, arising the meridians, and so let me try again. So to promote self-adjusting process, arising the functions of meridians to bring the body back to health. So in other words, TCM brings the imbalanced body into balance. So basically there are three main effects TCM treatment aims to achieve. First is to regulation of yin and yang. So just bear with me. Maybe these terms are quite strange to you, but try to bear with me. So the first aim to achieve a therapeutic effect, the treatment want to regulate the yin and the yang. You know, the sun is yang, moon is yin, day is yang, night is yin. And so on. So TCM views disease as a disharmony between yin and yang, qi and blood, and zang and fu. So regulating the relative strengths of yin and yang and remedying defects, rectifying abuse, and restoring the relative equilibrium of yin and yang are the principles underlying the clinical therapy. So the second therapeutic effect TCM want to achieve is to reinforcing the vital qi and eliminating the pathogenic influences. So the vital qi, try to think that's a life force, the inner energy to keep us alive. So to support the vital qi is to strengthen the body's resistance, improve immune system, shall we call it. So it is the victory or defeat in the struggle between the vital qi and pathogenic influences. So the important principle here is the therapy is try to change the relative strength of the vital qi and pathogens. As I said, it is the victory or defeat in the struggle between the vital qi and the pathogenic pathogens that determines the development of the disease or termination of the disease. The third effect TCM try to achieve is to ensuring the qi and blood flow through the meridians. So the meridian, a pathway of qi and blood, try to think the spider web or the traffic and the routes, highways and all the routes. So the meridian is a pathway of qi and blood. Qi and blood is the material basis of our life. And so to circulate the body and connect all organs. So the treatment is to move the meridian qis to restore and regulate the functions of zangfu and circulating the qi and the blood in the body, just like the policeman to make sure the traffic flows through smoothly. There's no traffic jam. Wherever there is a jam, there is a problem.
Yeah, I understand TCM is a very broad concept and the therapy. It's really hard to summarize in a short answer. Okay, so we move to the next one. So yeah, I noticed a lot of research focusing on COVID-19, but from the TCM perspective. So what are your thoughts on TCM's place in the COVID-19 crisis?
During the pandemic, TCM has been used extensively in China to combat COVID-19. And the TCM played a huge role, a unique role, and this has been recognized by WHO. During this time, China has issued preventative medicines to more than 35 countries, and with more than 78 herbal medicines. And each of them takes the full account of local conditions, people's living and eating habits. As we know, there's no remedy to cure this disease. So discussions on the integration of TCM and West medicine has regained the attention. So for TCM, I think this may be an opportunity to prove itself and gain international recognition.
Okay, thank you. So our last question is, how do you think TCM and the tourism industry can work together, such as in shaping Chinese tourist behavior? So any thoughts about it?
Yes, so we had a paper published, and this that was first time I have this collaboration between two completely different fields. But I think it's fascinating, it's promising, because the future is integrating Chinese medicine and Western medicine, and tourism could be a tool to rejuvenate and unlock the promise of traditional Chinese medicine for the world, and give people a deep understanding of TCM. So in the global medical tourism market, you would know very well, and this is thriving. And I think TCM tourism should go up with the trend and accelerate its development to gain a share in the global medical tourism market. And TCM is the symbol of Chinese culture and heritage. And the citizens' health is a symbol of a powerful nation. So more than ever, we start focusing on our health. This is especially true when we're experiencing, I was going to say after experience the pandemic. and people have reflection, and more than ever, we realize the importance of our health, and TCM and tourism could, work together. The integration of TCM and tourism could help. And it could be a new business model, I think, a driving force to promote health, contribute to people's quality of life, and to boost the strong economy.
Mm-hmm.
So TCM tourism, I envisage, for example, in China, could featuring TCM health services and visiting TCM historical culture, or appreciate the Chinese herbs and experience TCM products. So tourists can get involved in the TCM culture and have a understanding of the health concept from the TCM perspective, and gain knowledge about healthy living, dietary therapy, and so on from the TCM perspective. And similarly, I think Australia also has the opportunity to promote the indigenous traditional medicine globally, such as the Australian medicinal herbs.
TCM can be one the driver for booming the China's inbound tourism market, because I noticed a lot of the foreigners just coming to China to try the TCM for the health purposes. Okay, thank you so much for Dr. Carol Wang's input, and thank you so much for your great ideas sharing with us. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, hello, Metin.
Yeah, it was unmute, okay.
Okay, it's great to hear from you. Would you like to host another 2 speakers?
Yes, please. So I have been listening to all speakers from the beginning. So I am very happy to see all these invited speakers who are an expert in their own field. So I was able to listen to my colleague in marketing. It was a good idea to share different topics between marketing and tourism, and talk about, I think, human rights, and the person from Joshua from the human rights, the laws, the school of laws. He had also some interesting ideas. Finally, we had Carol. She talked about the traditional Chinese medicine, and I agree with you that it can be a kind of a good attraction for Chinese inbound tourism, to attract more people from other countries. So it can be a kind of a unique market segment. So our next speaker is also from the medical sciences.
Yes.
Professor Fang. He is the professor at the School of Public Health, Shandong First Medical University and Shandong Academy of Medical Sciences in China, Republic of China. His research interests is epidemiology of chronic diseases, evidence-based medicine, and glucomics. So these are, I think, Latin words that we are not very familiar. So Professor Ho, we have he also some other publications about medicine and health, life science and public health. So our question to him is about what about the interdisciplinary research between public health and tourism. So this is one of the, perhaps to me, one of the most growing fields that we can speak in the near future as an interdisciplinary research between tourism and medical sciences, I think, or health sciences.
First of all, public health herself is interdisciplinary, intersecting the field of epidemiology, biostatistics, environmental health, occupational health, public policy, and health economics, several disciplines. Interdisciplinary studies are essential to the development and application of new knowledge in public health. Interdisciplinary competitions provide a framework for scholars of public health to engage in cross-discipline research and use this research to guide health policy. For many people, tourism improves not only mental health, but also physical health. Nature therapies on chronic diseases has been provided in some touristic industries and sanatoriums in China. Systematic touristic therapies have potential to improve the health status at the viewpoint of public health. The collaborations between the researchers of public health and touristic administrators are able to promote the applications of tourism on improvement of public health, I think. Thank you.
The second question is, what kind of research, in terms of research collaboration, what kind of research would you like to conduct involving health and tourism sciences, between health and tourism?
Okay, thank you. Although tourism is considered effective on human health, there are researchers who hold the opposing view. Because the mechanism of tourism functions on healthy individuals or specific patients are yet clearly elucidated. Different from traditional medical approaches, the lack of standardization of tourism limit the usage of tourism on the therapy or prevention of chronic disease. The identification of dose or frequency of touristic therapy is still difficult, in my opinion. Dr. Jun and I have collaborated on the research of Alzheimer's disease, where we attempting an interdisciplinary research, even it is a small step. Alzheimer's disease is a progression neurodegeneration disease and the most common form of dementia. Alzheimer's disease has a long symptomatic or preclinical stage in individuals between roughly 20 and 45 years old, followed by mild cognitive impairment and amnesia or loss of memory. Most of these individuals will ultimately enter the terminal fully symptomatic phase, leading to low quality of life. Statistics indicate that more than 46 million patients worldwide currently have dementia and or Alzheimer's. The figure is expected to rise to more than 60 million by 2030 and reach more than 100 million by 2050. 50. Based on the death database released by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention in United States, we analyzed the trend of Alzheimer's deaths in United States from 1999 to 2018. Our findings demonstrate a clear increase in Alzheimer's mortality from 1999 to 2018, along with a notable increase from 2013 to 2016. Along with other studies on Alzheimer's disease, evidence from our study emphasized the urgent need for Alzheimer's intervention from a clinical, community, family, and public health perspective. When I discussed with Dr. Jun, we have the same interest on the Alzheimer's, on the relationship between Alzheimer's and tourism. So we will focus on the interdisciplinary study between tourism and Alzheimer's disease. Also, we focus on tourism and suboptimal health status. Before chronic diseases developed, there is a status called suboptimal health status. Suboptimal health status is an intermediate status between health and illness. It is a syndrome characterized by perception of health complaint, general weakness, and low energy. An increasing number of studies have shown that suboptimal health is associated with the development of diabetes mellitus as well and chronic heart disease and stroke. However, suboptimal health status is a reversible stage. I believe tourism has beneficial effect on persons who have a suboptimal health status. If the suboptimal health status is reversed, the individuals will be protected from developing chronic diseases. Professor Wei Wang is a leader in the China suboptimal health status studies, and he designed a questionnaire for measure suboptimal health status. The questionnaire is named Suboptimal Health Status Questionnaire 25. This Professor Wang and other professors or other researchers have used this questionnaire to measure the status of Alzheimer, to measure the levels of suboptimal health status in three major ethnic groups: Africans, Asians, and Caucasians. So the relationship between tourism and suboptimal health is needed to be clarified. I'm very interested in these topics.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Professor. I think it seems that you have a great experience in the collaboration between tourism and health research. I think it's good to see you on our panel. Yes, Jun, the floor is yours. We have, I think, the final speaker now.
Okay. Okay, thank you for Social Professor Hao's great insights. So we move to our final speaker, Dr. Yang Zhang. So
Sure.
Dr. Yang Jiang is Assistant Professor of Marketing at the University of Nottingham in Ningbo, China. Dr. Jiang's research interests include the consumer experience service marketing, the sharing economy, and sustainable development. She has published in top-tier journals in marketing and tourism. So given your rich experience in cross-disciplinary research, so we have a couple of questions for you, okay? The first question, as a marketing expert, how do you think COVID-19 has influenced companies' marketing practices?
Thank you for this question. This is a very interesting question in the first place. The changes in consumer behavior during the COVID-19 pandemic has actually influenced organizations' marketing strategies and tactics. Let's take retailing, for example. It is interesting to learn how innovative Chinese retailers turned adversity into opportunity in the process of fighting COVID-19. Affected by the COVID-19 outbreak, consumers in China have increased their frequency of shopping online and the amount of money spent on online consumption. For consumers who have never purchased online before, online shopping has become a habit during the pandemic period and is likely to continue even after it ends. This fundamental change in the shopping habits of former offline-only consumers actually leads to an expansion of the online market. To accommodate this trend, many retailers have accelerated digital transformation and embraced digitalized innovations. For instance, the O2O business model has been developing rapidly, online to offline, or we say offline to online. Online platforms owned by supermarkets enable consumers to make orders online and receive deliveries on their doorstep. This provides great convenience for their customers. Obviously, the COVID-19 pandemic has become a catalyst for the digital transformation of traditional retailers, and the internet has become an indispensable part of the retailer's omni-channel distribution. Next, I would like to share my observation of an interesting phenomenon where retailers and hospitality enterprises collaborate with each other by labor sharing to provide enhanced value to their customers. The background is that the COVID-19 outbreak has left many employees in the hospitality industry, such as restaurant employees, unemployed, whereas retailers like Hema Fresh Supermarket is in urgent need for more staff to handle the soaring online orders. Hema Fresh Supermarket is a grocery chain owned by Alibaba here in China, which converges online and offline retailing, and they name it as new retailing. Labor sharing, on the other hand, refers to when organization A has idle employees, but organization B needs extra staff. Then organization A will lease staff to organization B on a short-term basis. Through labor sharing, employees from several restaurants in China temporarily joined Hema Fresh Supermarket to help with product distribution, which has ensured the retailer's service quality. This innovative model of collaborative employment has created a win-win-win situation by meeting the emergent employment need of online retailers, alleviating the unemployment pressures of the restaurants, motivating the idle staff, and optimizing the allocation of human resources. And more advanced, we can see that marketers' use of robots, automated delivery vehicles, and drone deliveries during the pandemic will actually accelerate the penetration of artificial intelligence into marketing practices and make retailing even smarter. If our participants would like to discuss with me further on this topic, welcome to email me. Thank you.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much. Okay, let's move to the second one for you. So you have conducted interdisciplinary research involving marketing, tourism, and hospitality. So can you tell us a bit about these experiences and what they were like for you?
That would be my pleasure. The interdisciplinary approach entails the dynamic interaction between different disciplines and involves knowledge co-production by capitalizing on different bodies of knowledge. It helps me analyze and understand the complexity of tourism and hospitality issues. It also facilitates creating new theories by assembling diversified disciplinary elements. For instance, the marketing philosophy actually guides me to think from the consumer's perspective and pay attention to consumer psychology and consumer behavior when carrying out research. Theories and knowledge advancements in the marketing discipline also assist me to develop a deeper understanding of the tourism phenomena. Here, I would like to share an example of interdisciplinary research. I recently collaborated with Dr. Wen and completed a perspective article about the effects of COVID-19 on hotel marketing and management. This article is forthcoming in the International Journal of Contemporary Hospitality Management. And in this article, Dr. Wen and I discussed the effects of COVID-19 on hotel marketing management practices and outlined a research agenda to stimulate knowledge development in this hotel sector. We proposed the research agenda from 3 dimensions. First, artificial intelligence. Second, hygiene and cleanliness. And third, health and healthcare. So in terms of artificial intelligence, we anticipate that robot receptionists, facial scan check-ins, voice guest control, robot concierge assistants, and other contactless services will begin to replace human-to-human contact services in the near future. The application of artificial intelligence in hotels represents a new service concept and an emerging research field. We call for research to dive deeper into the applications of mechanical AI, thinking AI, and feeling AI for service delivery, service creation, and service interaction. For example, studies can examine the thoughts and feelings of hotel guests when they receive more contactless services while having fewer opportunities to obtain human-based services. And forthcoming research could also investigate how big data and analytical AI can be employed to capture the individual differences in the service preferences and achieve the service personalization. Well, given the growing consumer demand for the hotel hygiene following the COVID-19 outbreak, enhanced cleanliness and sanitization to prevent or limit the spread of disease can be promoted as a selling point during and after this pandemic. The existing literature has pointed out that younger travelers and women travelers of all ages would be willing to pay a premium for enhanced guest room disinfection. From a marketing perspective, we think that future research could examine whether different hotel guest segments' willingness to pay a premium for enhanced sanitization has changed during and after this pandemic. In terms of the health and healthcare, many people have begun to reconsider their lifestyle and focus on physical and mental well-being following the pandemic. Considering this newly prominent consumer need, helping guests lead a healthy lifestyle could become a post-pandemic market trend for the hotels. For example, meditation programs, digital detox programs, and health diet programs are likely to become more popular in hotels' marketing mix. Under these circumstances, it appears desirable to further investigate how hotels can design personalized products to enhance guests' well-being and improve the guest experience. Studies should also explore opportunities for hotels to collaborate with guests in co-creating the green value that contributes to environmental sustainability, because fundamentally, human health originates from the health of nature. In summary, the global pandemic associated with COVID-19 may have enduring consequences on travel, the tourism industry, the tourism and hospitality industry as well. In my opinion, the interdisciplinary approach could help us researchers strengthen knowledge and theory in the tourism and hospitality realms and use our research insights to help the tourism and hospitality businesses become more resilient. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for your excellent insights. Okay, Metin, it's your turn.
I'm just using my cell phone, so I'm not able to see any questions from the audience. Do you have any questions? Can you see them?
Oh, yes. Okay. Firstly, thank you so much for all our speakers' great insights on interdisciplinary research collaboration in tourism. So due to the time limit of this webinar, among a lot of questions submitted, so we quickly pick up two very interesting and insightful questions to further seeking our speakers and the moderators' insight. Okay, the first one, the question one is, I'm very interested in an emerging kind of tourism, space tourism. So which has been introduced in recent journal articles. So do you think this would be a good topic for interdisciplinary research across law, marketing, medicine, and public health? If so, how should I go about leading a research team involving experts in different disciplines? So what do you think? So we came from Professor Metin Kozak and all our speakers in different research areas.
Well, I'm not an expert on space tourism, so I have no idea.
Yeah, this is a new emerging kind of tourism. Space tourism, this is quite new. So yeah, for all speakers and the moderator, do you have any ideas?
Jun, in terms of speaking about from the point of tourism marketing, I think it's a kind of luxury product in tourism. So in the short term, so it can be very popular, to promote it, as a unique product. But in the long term, I don't know, but perhaps like other, tourism products, it can be a part of our common life. So it shouldn't be a very unique, attraction for the people in the world.
Okay. How about our speakers? Do you have any ideas about space tourism?
Maybe I can go first.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I think, of course, as you all said, it is definitely an emerging area. And when I look at it from the perspective of the legal importance, where I think this interdisciplinary research can really flourish is from the point of view of liability, when we're talking about space tourism, from the point of view of applicable law, safety of passengers, and of course, which criminal jurisdiction would apply, because that's something that really comes to my mind, when you talk about space tourism. So the status of space tourist, what is the status of your space tourist going to be? Are you going to call him a tourist, an astronaut, a passenger, or a traveler? Because, nomenclature is very important. And then I think with regard to the other laws that would come in is, of course, the contractual relationship between the transport company and the passenger. And what are going to be the effects on third party? Now, I know there's a professor at the University of Cologne in Germany who specializes in air and space law, Professor Stephen Hobe. And he does a lot of work around this area, and he's put something together in regard to this as well as tourism, because I believe Russia was one of them, one of the first countries, Roscosmos, who really arranged something in orbit as far as tourism was concerned. But I think this is really an emerging area, a very interesting one, and where you can get tourism scholars coming together with law experts, academics, specializing particularly in air and space law, and that would probably lead to a very, very good research output.
All right, thank you. How about any other idea from other disciplines? How about
I would like to.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. When can I just chip in my sort of observation? I think with the recent success of Elon Musk and his SpaceX, this becomes a very sort of emerging area right now we're looking at. I agree with Professor Metin. this will sort of be regarded as a type of luxury consumption, in particular in the tourism setting. So it will be, I think it will be very interesting to know that how actually consumers or tourists, potential tourists, will be segmented and positioned. I mean, we all know that we actually have expectations about tours and trips because we have prior experience on this type of offering. But in terms of space tourism, nobody actually have any prior experience before. So how actually the expectations, the experience expectation particularly, how they actually are going to, I mean, how tourists actually are going to construct their experience expectations. I think this will be really interesting to sort of understand. But certainly it's a gray area to go into, but it's very niche as well. It's probably more than just buying an LV bag because that's affordable to most people, to a lot of people. But in terms of space travel, we're talking about millions of dollars per travel. That's only going to be applied to a very, very tiny percent of the population. And this tiny percent of population, they will have very unique value and value priorities, which may influence their buying behavior. So that's from my marketing sort of understanding of the tourism travels. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, any other idea? How about Yang? Do you have any comments?
I can't agree more with our previous speaker, Associate Professor Liu Fang. I would think that the customer experience management is also very important in this process because we haven't done this, and consumer all came here for the value of the novelty. So they are seeking novelty, and I think that most people who would like to take this kind of space travel, in the first place, they have the power of the income. They have the certain income, reached a certain income level to afford, to make them and be able to afford this kind of travel. And in the second place, they have a very high expectation for what their experience will be like when they're taking this kind of travel. So customer experience management is very vital in this process. And also we would need to think about the location of space ports, the training required, the duration, insurance, health and reputation of the operating company. All of these will need to be taken into consideration when we're designing a space travel product.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so let's move to our second question so other speakers can more involved in. Okay, so the second question is, I think interdisciplinary approaches are not limited to academic research, but can also be used for educational purposes. So do you think it would be beneficial for university students or even younger students to work with peers in different disciplines to learn from each other? So if so, what should be done to make it happen?
Jun, so can I just give a couple of ideas from Turkey? You know, the system, the university system, higher education system in Turkey allows the students to take some other, lessons from other courses from other departments. So we call this, like, interdisciplinary, but transdisciplinary, parts of higher education in Turkey. For example, if you are studying tourism, you can also get some, courses from other departments like sociology, economics, and so on. This is, I think, a kind of, the need that ourselves as, professors, as well as, students, our students as young, colleagues, students, young generations who are in need of, having more collaboration, with other disciplines to educate themselves, in a better position for the future, I think. So the higher education system in the world as well is not limited, to only one discipline or only one field. So we need to combine different, fields or disciplines to advance our knowledge in different fields, and then to make a good career for the future.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Thank you so much. Any other comments from other speakers, please?
Can I say something? I think it's a good idea. I agree with Professor Kozak. I think you need to start from collaboration, start from involvement. So only by, involved in learning new things and you get informed with new information, and that's where we can explore and find a new insight. So, so for example, in my field, TCM, Chinese medicine, and people from different discipline can, start an initiative, experience. I think whoever in whichever field, everybody's life related to health, can experience, for example, medicinal herbs, and specific traditional, indigenous or traditional therapy, or visit this kind of historical culture, or appreciate the different or experience different therapies or medicinal products. And these tourists can get involved in this kind of a culture and understand different health concept from a completely different cultural background or different traditional therapy perspective, so that to gain knowledge from different aspects. And then that's where the research or new insight or great ideas can start.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. Okay, just the last one because of time limit.
Yes, can I just say a few words?
Yes, please.
I think this is a great question, because we should actually train our next generation of researchers to be in the mindset of collaborative research. So there could be a lot of things that the university could do, each department, discipline could do. I mean, this is go beyond just, between tourism and marketing for sure. So for example, I come from University of Western Australia. For a number of years, our university start to offer Bachelor of Philosophy, which will have the students for 4 years instead of a traditional 3-year bachelor degree. So basically in this Bachelor of Philosophy, students are, sort of not forced, but they are encouraged to engage in interdisciplinary research. So when I look at their topics, in some cases, they actually, incorporate a lot of disciplines together. I think this just gives our next generation researchers and frontier sort of collaborators an idea that this type of mindset should be developed and encouraged at their very early a career stage, or when they actually try to enter into a research degree. I think this should be certainly encouraged, and we should also place measures, mechanisms to actually ensure that the process is actually sustainable, and then we can keep attracting those talented young minds into our research. So that's very important.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, so yeah, for the time limit, we need to stop here for discussing about the question. Okay, so let's move to Metin. So would you like to draw a conclusion for our webinar today?
Thank you, Jun. Well, it was very interesting, panel for myself either. So I am also open to conduct more interdisciplinary, research in tourism. As a person coming from the tourism background, I also encourage, other people to engage with different people from different disciplines. So this is the future of the academia. This is the future of university, and this is the future of, higher education system all over the world. So we need to be more, encouraging and engaging with other colleagues and students to do more, interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary research. Why? To strengthen the quality of our research outputs and to make better contributions to the quality of life of the people in this world. So thank you very much. I also hope to see more collaborative research in tourism as well as in other disciplines, and also to work together with people from different countries. So I would like to thank to all our speakers who are coming from different backgrounds, academic backgrounds, and I also like to see their contributions to either to tourism research or to their own fields from the interdisciplinary perspective in the near future, regardless of the contributions to COVID-19 or not, but this is not the case. So we can think about the future in a positive way. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So on behalf of our co-host, Professor Metin Kozak, and on my own behalf, I would like to express my deep sense of gratitude to all the speakers for their valuable insight today in our webinar. So I remain grateful to them and their universities for the indomitable support. I also thank our participants for the huge turnout, as well as the interest in our webinar. It was indeed an intellectual feast. So we are grateful for the strong support provided by Edith Cowan University and Dokuz Eylul University in making this webinar successful. I'm sure we will be able to host more of these webinars on interdisciplinary research in tourism in the near future. So a recording of this webinar will be available very soon. So we will keep in touch, and the relevant information will be posted on LinkedIn in about a week. So we hope more input will be generated soon from colleagues in different disciplines, and we would be happy to engage in more interdisciplinary research in these and other areas. So each speaker's contact information will also be made available in the session recording. So feel free to reach out to either Dr. Kozak or myself, along with any today's speakers. So we would all be happy to hear from you, and many thanks, and we hope to see you again. Thank you for everyone. Thank you.